Our neighborhood was devastated, but now we have life back in it again. That's the most important thing of what we want to do this celebration for, is to bring life back to the Lower Ninth Ward and let people know no matter what happens, we ain't going nowhere. This is our home, so let's get it going on. I became known as the man who tells the story. My story is about what happened to us, and basically I realized the more I told it, the less painful it was.
On August 29, 2005, I saw the images of Katrina hitting New Orleans from my home in California. I saw the devastation, and I knew that there was untold human suffering that went along with it. I've been a psychiatrist for 40 years, and I work with people every day around painful events. But this level of devastation and loss, something that sweeps in and carries off everything with it, this is everyone's worst fear. But it happened to the people of New Orleans, to their communities, and to the land itself. In April 2008, my wife and I and our 2 daughters were invited to volunteer in the Lower Ninth Ward by a good friend, Vincent Adams. Vincent was writing a book on post-Katrina recovery. On our way there, and on pure impulse, I bought a video camera. It was 2.5 years after Katrina, but the volunteer effort was still very much alive and very much needed. So we all went down, not knowing what to expect. It was there that I met Robert Green in front of his FEMA trailer. Robert greeted everyone who walked by, and he still does. Robert had lost his mother and granddaughter from the roof of his home. He took me inside the trailer, right in the middle of a neighborhood party, and he told me a story.
The house on the left of us and the right of us hit our house and pushed the front part from the back part, pushed us into the current, and here we go floating up the street. And my brother and my mother were drawn into the water. My brother's holding on to the house, and he said one of them fell in. So I started screaming, Jesus, 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 and I had to grab my composure because I had 2 more to worry about. I had my mother to worry about, and I couldn't do anything about the one that was gone. So I stopped and went to take the second child, put her on the roof of the house, and she jumped in the water to save her sister. So I grabbed the 2-year-old baby, and we were in the water holding on to the rain gutters, and we couldn't get out the water. So here the first baby drowned, and the second baby disappeared, so we just assumed she drowned. I started yelling to Jesus, but once again I had to compose myself, and out of the blue came a voice saying, Papa, Papa. Now the child had actually swam across the front of the house, down the side to a big truck, and that gave us a way out of the water. And I found out later that she never swam a day in her life until that day. She played in the tub, learning how to swim in the tub, and that was the day she learned to swim, the day she jumped in the water for a drink. So she saved us because she gave us a way out. So now the second wave passes. My mother had died early, we resuscitated her, but at the end of the hurricane, she was dead, she didn't move. Her eyes were still open, she had a leaf in her mouth, and my brother said my mama didn't make it.
When I went to New Orleans, I didn't know anything from a second line. I never heard of a second line. When I met Robert, He invited me to attend the second line. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know what to expect. I knew it was in honor of his mother and his granddaughter. Someone had said it was a sacred ritual, but I went and I was just amazed by it. It just contained so much power and so much soul and so much tradition that I was really, really struck by it.
We miss him so. Tell him come back home. Down yonder. Where they belong. Don't you hear me? Come back home. I'm calling. No, you hear me? Come back. 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 Come back.
The second line goes from his house on Tennessee Street up to the tree where the bodies of his mother and his granddaughter were found. And every year he puts a wreath up in their honor.
Somebody tell me, when will it come back? I gotta know. I want to know. Who knows? When will it come back?
When I evacuated after Katrina, I actually went to Nashville, Tennessee. I stayed in Nashville for a month, and when they found my granddaughter's body, I came back here. Waiting for them to find my mother's body, I moved back to Baton Rouge, which is an hour away. When I used to come to the city, I would always see somebody that I hadn't seen, and seeing that person made you homesick. And seeing enough people could make you so sick that you just gotta come back home.
He was one of the ones who came back early on and lived in the trailer and decided he was going to rebuild. And whenever people came down to look at the area, they stopped at his place because he had a big sign out in front, and it told his story. I think from an anthropological perspective, people like to tell their story because they want to be in the presence of witnesses. They want witnesses to affirm that this happened, to affirm that their story is meaningful, and that they're not alone in the world.
We have electricity down here, we have running water down here, we have garbage collection down here, I received my mail down here, I received my old landline back, you see what I'm saying? So now people are gonna know, and just the mere matter of the fact of this party being here, what I'm saying is everybody's gonna wanna be like us, not because we have more than they have, but we have what they had before Katrina. I want you to get this on film. One of the things that's really important is the fact that you hear life here.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? This is life the way it used to be. We had lives here, and we had people who enjoyed themselves. So this is my daughter-in-law right here jumping. This is my kids in here jumping. You see what I'm saying? So this is the way it was before. This is the way it's going to be again.
I think at that moment in time in New Orleans, there were a lot of people who lived there who were trying to come back who felt like the rest of the country didn't really know what they were going through. People were really interested in telling the stories in order to tell the truth.
Go! Tell me about to get started. Trying to preserve your sex in your brother? Yes.
Checker lines are actually a celebration of the death of our family, and my granddaughter was 3 years old, died 4:30 in the morning of Hurricane Katrina. My mother was 73 years old, and she died at 1 o'clock in Hurricane Katrina. So each year we have a celebration of their life, and we have a second line march for that point. It's not trying to make any speeches to the president. It's not trying to make any speeches to the press. It's our way of actually showing that we care about our family, and this is our way of celebrating their life.
What's happened in Robert's life is he's decided to do this second line on the anniversary of Katrina every year. And I kept going back every year. And it started out with his losses. And it went to really capturing the losses of the whole Lower Ninth Ward and of all of New Orleans. And it's been a way of bringing back a second life after the storm.
This is basically what happened to us during Hurricane Katrina. But since then, we've been able to come back home. And we were able to get things started again. And we were able to be back to normal. Today, I spent today with a couple of friends of mine, Rick, who's back there filming, Becky, who's sitting back there, and these are people who really don't want me to say much about them, but they've done some great things for us because we have been helped so much by volunteers.
What enabled New Orleanians to recover was grassroots, volunteer, often faith-based organizations that went down there and volunteered. It was the volunteers who rebuilt New Orleans. People who lived there, who helped each other, and organized their neighborhoods and got volunteers to work for them, and other people that came from all over the world.
Well, we're helping Mr. Getrich get his fence fixed so he's got some security. And then tomorrow we'll be tearing off his roof and replacing it for him.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Well, and that's not all. We're down at the Johnson house, taking a roof off there, and over at the Kager house, fixing up their exterior. So we got lots going on today.
God.
Yeah.
How'd you get into this?
I started helping after Katrina with the evacuees that came up to Chicago. Got to know the people, got them settled into Chicago, and then found my way down here and started helping here.
No, this is not my first trip. This is my fourth trip.
Your fourth.
This is my fourth and my fourth of many.
So this is where you've been?
Been here just 6 months now.
Okay.
6 months. We was on the other side of the canal when we first got back in June of '06 from Shreveport, Louisiana.
They're so determined to remain in this community that they were willing to live in what you're going to see just so they could stay here.
And how many people live here?
Two, myself and my husband, William.
Okay.
The way I work, it's hard for me to actually do the work that I can to the house, but we trying. So we got a game plan. We both talked about it. We're going to start from the back to the front. Do the best that we can.
We've had a lot of great things happening here in the lower Ninth Ward, in the area where when you came last year, there was hardly nobody but a trailer other than mine. We now have 14 houses. These are my neighbors over here. That's my neighbors there. And all the people that you see are actually families that lived here before. I won't miss the trailer, but what I will miss are the people that stop by the trailer. What I will miss are the volunteers who wonder, who's that crazy person living in those two trailers? Why isn't he out? But I won't miss the trailer because, like I tell a lot of people, when I'm inside this trailer, I don't see what's on the outside. I live on the inside of it. So from that standpoint, I'll continue to live. I'll continue to have the parties. I'll continue to cook. I'll continue to look forward to seeing my neighbors who aren't here that will come back one day. So those things won't change. It was just that instead of being in a FEMA trailer, I'll be inside of a house.
An international community of support has arisen around the second line. Volunteers have come back for it. New friendships have been forged.
This is what it looks like right now. This is a lower Ninth Ward. We're on Tennessee Street.
The media and even the politicians have taken notice, and they've become part of it too.
Storm, if it didn't teach us anything, it taught us that we're all in the same boat. We all have the same hopes, we all have the same dreams, and together, when people didn't think we could make it, they never thought that we would be here, the rest of the country is looking at us at amazement, at the resilience that the people of New Orleans have shown, and particularly the people in the Ninth Ward, about the fact that we're going to be here come hell or high water, and we don't have both. Amen?
We are so grateful to our churches. We are so grateful to Brad Pitt, the angel of the Ninth Ward, and to the Make It Right Foundation.
You got a new home here. How did that come about?
Well, it actually came about through Brad Pitt's group, Make It Right. They were inspired by a story that Brad actually went to a town hall meeting right after Katrina, and there was an old man who said, somebody needs to make this right. And Brad took that as his idea. And I can call him Brad because now he's become a friend and he's become a great person doing a great thing down here. But what Make It Right did is they gave the opportunity for families who lived here in this neighborhood to come back home. Watch out, y'all. Watch out.
He's become a leader. He's done something with that tragedy in a way that has been remarkable to me as a psychiatrist, as a healer, because it really showed me a way a person could heal that was very different from what I had learned and actually been practicing myself. In psychotherapy, you tell your story and come to accept your pain. In a second line, you also tell the story and accept your pain, but you celebrate the joys of living at the same time. And I think that makes it easier to move on.
To be honest, I never have anything to cry for anymore. Our neighbors are back, my children are back, my grandkids are back, our neighborhood is coming back. You see we have people who are actually from the neighborhood down here also. So I have nothing to be sad about. This is a day of celebration, and this is how hard I worked is what you see on my face. Every day. Every day.
You take care. I'm on.
All right. Good comes only when you open the door, and I could keep my door closed and nothing ever come through it. And I open my door so much to so many people, that I always get, and that's why I have all of this that you see around me. You're welcome to take as many pictures as you want. You want me to wave?
Yeah, wave. That would be great. In your house?
Huh?
When did you move in? Is this your house?
Actually, in July of last year. Oh, you can come up.
This is Jane.
Hey, Jane, come on in. And y'all can shoot, because he's shooting. Y'all can shoot, too. Come on in. Join the crowd. Now, these guys are from Virginia. Are y'all related?
Like, all these new people want to know about what happened. And some people, like you say, don't like to talk about it. And I didn't expect him to want to talk to this many people and embrace people just walking up off the street. If it's 100 people on the bus or it's 2 people in the car, it don't matter. He's going to invite them upstairs and he's going to talk to them. And I never saw that side of him.
You never saw that?
When we was younger. I knew he liked to do it with us, but I never saw him do it with people off the street that just public.
Can we shoot you in front of your house or on the steps or something?
I'm very accommodating. Come on.
I admire him greatly because he is so strong and so positive and so focused, and this tragedy maybe is what gave him a mission, and it's a huge mission. I think he's deeply inspired.
He emailed and said the most amazing email saying, "Thank you for filming with me for this documentary. It's put my family kind of in part of history." And nobody's ever said that before, so it meant quite a lot. And he said, "Oh, and I'm having a housewarming party next week." So I'm in London, and I went, why not? I jumped on a plane to go to a party over here in Louisiana. And from then on, we became firm friends. I brought my mum over. I brought my best friend over to experience it, both who have fallen in love with the place. And Robert, really, he just manages to have this magnetism to bring people together.
Yeah! Oh, we can do it,
Hey, Rick. Hey, Robert, how are you? All right. There's no such thing as standing outside here. There's no such thing as standing outside? Yeah, I was going to stand outside. Oh, it's too hard. Too much wind.
It was eerie. It was like, this is happening again? And I got halfway there. The plane was diverted. I couldn't land. I stopped in Denver, and then I got as far as Houston. He said, call me back at 4 a.m. because 4 a.m. was when the flood hit, August 29th, 2005. And when I called him back at 4 a.m., he was somber. He was re-experiencing it, and you could tell it in his voice. Robert had to postpone the anniversary second line in 2012 for a couple weeks because of the hurricane. I couldn't be there to film it, but a Lower Ninth Ward photographer, Joe Cracchiola, sent me his photos. That second line was smaller and quieter, but it was just as joyful.
Five, 6 years ago, to be honest, you would be looking at nothing but grass. 5, 6 years ago, you'd be looking at nothing but high-grown weeds. And 5 or 6 years ago, nothing but one FEMA trailer here and one FEMA trailer up the street, and nothing but vacant land all around us. We have families that are back, we have children that are back, and we celebrate what brought us all together, the tragedy of Hurricane Katrina. It's a chance for this community to have a function that celebrates a time that was really important to everybody's lives.
You know, what drew me in about the second line is how joyful it is, how positive it is, and how celebratory it is with the music and the brass band and the dancing and the Mardi Gras Indians. Families get together. It's a joyous event. Tragedy has a way of bringing together people who would never otherwise meet. In April 2015, Robert turned 60. He called and invited me down for a party in the Lower Ninth at the Takrima Center for Art and Culture. There was a second line there with the brass band and the Indians and his friends and family and neighbors. But this second line was to celebrate his birthday. In the middle of the disaster, it was really important to the people of New Orleans to know that other people all over the world dropped everything and came to be with them to help them rebuild their lives. And for those who came, it's been an amazing gift to be really welcomed into the New Orleans culture and into the lives and the spirit of the people. When we share the pains and the joys of life together, right up close and next to each other, it's healing for all of us. Now, when we come back to New Orleans, we're all coming back home.
You are an example of what is possible when, in the face of tragedy and in the face of hardship, good people come together to lend a hand. And brick by brick, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, you build a better future.